Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another episode of TheGoodCastShow. So since the Sabah state elections, we have seen many things happening, particularly with one party, DAP. A lot of statements have come out from their camp and many people are questioning why the sudden surge in statements and campaigns and motions and all that coming out from their side. Is it a sense that DAP has been shaken by the results, or is it just business as usual for them? So to answer all these questions and what people on the ground are saying, I have with me a returning guest who incidentally is also the representative of the people of Kota Kemuning. He's the one and only Yang Berhormat. Mr. Prakash, how are you, sir? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi Vinod, I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me again.
Always. As I said, you always have a seat on this podcast, definitely, whenever you want.
Thank you.
So the last time we met on different terms, yes. we were finding out more about you and your thing in DAP. But let's start in Sabah. So what's the overall mood within DAP after the 8-0 loss?
We took note of the sentiments of people of Sabah.
Okay.
And I think this time they give us a message that there's more effort and more action has to be taken for us to help them and also for us to address the issues which is going on in Sabah actually.
Okay.
All right, but again, it's not entirely we are taken, or rather there's no support at all. If you can see, after the election, people are still sad about that we have lost, but there's a lot of support. In the meantime, we realized that there is numbers of Chinese support has been moved to a different party.
Warisan and all that.
Because I think the mood at that time is totally a different scenario altogether. But again, it was a message that we have to carefully analyze and revisit our plans for Sabah.
But many political analysts have pointed out one thing, that they are surprised why the DAP on this side of the country are overreacting. They're claiming you're overreacting because, as we all know, historically, Sabah and Sarawak historically tend to have their own sort of political ways, right? So why is DAP Pusat concerned about what happened in Sabah?
When it comes to DAP, we are a party from all states. So our concern is, as far as the state is concerned, we also want to re-look at it of our promises and our vision for Sabah. We look at that perspective, I believe, from our leaders. The concern also, we have to take note of all the sentiments. Why? What can be done, and what our plans for Sabah then.
Interesting, because after the elections, there was an emergency meeting held and you came up with a 6-month plan. We'll touch that in a bit. But you brought up one thing interesting, YB. You talked about about DAP's reasons for defeat. Now, one of them, according to one article in Malaysia Kini, when they quoted a man, Mr. Wong Fuk Lim, of 65, a retired Penampang resident who now works as a Grab driver, said DAP was increasingly viewed as detached from Sabah-based decision-making. If something happens in Sabah, they still have to ask their bosses in KL. They are not local. So is this a case that DAP made the mistake of not giving DAP Sabah full autonomy?
I think it's his point of view. In actual fact, as far we are concerned, every state, for example, Sarawak and Sabah, they make their decision on their own actually. We just support their position as far as we are concerned.
So that means the DAP Central does not get involved?
Does not get involved.
Okay.
But of course, the perspective will be look like they have to ask and all that as a matter of respect. But again, I think our SG, Secretary General, have made it clear that autonomy of Sabah Sarawak will be always to the party members in DAP there itself.
Now, as you, of course, there must be on a personal admission or even an internal party admission that there were many mistakes done in Sabah, right? One of them was, of course, people are saying that DAP Sabah associated themselves with GRS, which, as we know, in the run-up to elections had many scandals associated with them. Even BN pulled away, So do you think DAP suffered because of this, that they associate themselves with GRS?
Let me place a disclaimer here. See, I don't really involve directly in Sabah's election, but as a spectator and also as a member, I see, I mean, everyone has a different opinion
Yeah.
on this. But again, we at the time was a coalition with GRS at the point of time. So then we've been just assigned, or rather doing the job at that point of time. We did not compete together with them. We have stand on our own party.
Okay. But again, this seems to be the reason why perhaps people fell out of favor with DAP. And interesting enough, as what you said, it's absolutely true, because there are voices on the ground that are saying that they did not vote for DAP, not because they didn't like DAP, but they were more like disappointed. It was like, and in the 2010-2012 opposition manifesto, the famous Buku Jingga, I myself had a copy at that time, explicitly rejected policies that allow for corruption and other financial crimes and abuse of power as part of modernizing Malaysia's governance. So with all of that, DAP's background, do you think they should be more careful with whom they associate with? Because before entering government, they were very strong against corruption and all that, but now they seem to be a bit more warmer to the idea.
I would say we still hold on with that principle that we are not entertaining any corruptions. But on this note, I think at this point of time, investigation has been conducted actually. Then we leave it, the investigation to be completed and action to be taken by the relevant agencies. As far as I was informed, in that case, 2 of the ADUN has been, in fact, charged with the offence. But in entirety, have any ideas of other cases. This is what I read from the news. But if you ask me, we are very serious and take a strict position that we are not going to entertain any corruptions or allegations or associate with any parties in that.
Now I want to jump a bit out of Sabah, take a break. We will come back to it. Datuk Sri Najib Razak, who recently had his application for house arrest denied by the High Court. Now, a DAP member, YB Ying, came out with a Facebook caption that said, finally a reason to celebrate the new year. Fantastic caption, by the way. I got to give her props for that. But this has, of course, made UMNO members very angry, saying, Sampa, Dr. Akmal again has come up and says time for us to leave and all that kind of stuff. How would you describe the relationship between DAP and UMNO as we lead up to the GE? Are you guys always going to be fighting with each other, always tooth and nail against one another?
I think everyone have a right to express their views. I think what we have to do is probably respect and try to address the problem. Here, I think YB have done it. I was just informed. I read from the news. I haven't verified the facts, but again, it's her personal view on that. It's not a stand of DAP, or because I don't see any our state leaders, our federal leaders have made any announcement on this.
Yeah, it's just
her own opinion. But it's everyone. See, for instance, sometimes when UMNO makes some mistakes, we also have to voice it out. It's happened. But what confirm is we are come to a point of a maturity, matured in terms of politics. We have to tell off to even our fellow peers if someone's make mistakes. It's fine.
So, are you saying that was a mistake to post that statement on Facebook?
I'm not in a position to say that mistake because it's her
trying to catch you,
decision.
Sensationalism. Remember we spoke about it? So, okay, let's move on to another one, of course. Again, DAP versus UMNO again. This time is YB Lim Goreng versus YB Datuk Sri Zahid. And this is on the topic of GST. Do you think that Datuk Sri Zahid's push for GST, he's saying he wants it implemented after the G16, or was it after or before, but he wants it implemented, puts DAP in a tough spot because this was something that you guys ran against in your coming up. So how would DAP be dealing with this?
So again, it's a policy decision that we have to look at the holistic and the impact to the economic of this country. Again, many countries has been implementing GST, but we took a position that Malaysia is not ready for GST at this point of time. It's more we can address on the targeted community or targeted business for SST. Whether the time comes for us to apply the GST depends on the studies that the government has to do it. Everyone might say that this is biased and not on that, but at the whether the policy is the right policy at the right time is for the government to decide after doing a proper studies on the data driven, not because of we want to do it. Everyone have ambitious ambition to do or goal to reach.
Yeah.
But again, it has to be at right place and right time and right decision, because it impacts the livelihood of people at large.
Now, I also know you outside of the podcast and as well as your political career, but and you strike me as a person who is a more Malaysian, multicultural, multiracial kind of man. You know, you're fine with everyone and all that. But we've seen in the past, again, very distant and near past, comments against YB Yo's appointment as the minister of the Federal Territory, particularly concerns about the Malays and all that. What do you say to these concerns raised by UMNO?
Again, this is where we have to show that they are wrong, because I think at the point now, the sentiment's always been like this. Now we have to show that even in a Malay majority, we can handle them. We can, even non-Malays can handle and respect the rights and respect the culture, and we also to show that we are willing to take care their social affairs. This is something we want to portray and show that Malaysia are ready to move forward.
Okay.
So the sentiment, the worriedness has always been the case, because they will always create a stigma. Oh, these people might not understand our culture. But now, at least there's a step to show otherwise, and we will show that YB is someone who's very, very capable leader who understand and can address the people's needs. Actually,
What do you think about the recent cabinet reshuffle?
It's a good reshuffle where a lot of questions before this, many has been addressed. At the same time, I can see the Prime Minister has taken some drastic steps to show, especially the appointment of Federal Minister, to show that let's give a chance, let's make a change.
Yeah, let's make a difference.
In Malaysian politics.
Definitely. Now, still sticking on that before we go back to Sabah, when I look, since we are in the lead up to GE16, and when I see Pastor's response again to that as well, bringing the Malay sentiment, the Islamic sentiment and all that, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're in it, right, that the next elections will be the most racially charged, bigoted elections ever, the campaigns, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But of course, we can say that will come from the opposition side. But then how will DAP play its cards? How is it going to counter this? Is it going to oppose the green wave and play those lines as well? How are you going to compete?
You see, I think what everyone has to put as a priority, or rather the most important agenda will be, is for the betterment of this country and for Malaysians especially. So we always want to show that Malaysia will be more stable, more vibrant and resilient by virtue of having everyone together, inclusivity. By running a racial politics would not bring this country to anywhere. In fact, now, again, the competition, I always say, the competition is not among us Malaysian. The competition now, we have to compete with the world. And are we ready for that? And only way we can be stronger is when we all together.
Exactly. And, back to what you said just now, again, you brought up about how people were not just voted out DAP, they were just upset with DAP, right? And this is a statement, again, from that very same article on Malaysia Kini. Warisan emerged as the main beneficiary in urban seats, not because of strong confidence, but because it was seen as the only viable alternative capable of unseating DAP. So you can see it's not really they don't like DAP, they're just a bit upset, right? It sounds as if in the Sabah elections, DAP dropped the ball, right? They dropped the ball. So what lessons can they learn over here for the coming GE? What landmines should DAP avoid or be more concerned about?
As a spectator, I realize people have seen us as an opposition, always voicing out agendas and always voicing out when there is something is not right. But when you're in government, you seems to be very, I would say, very low tone, or rather, sometimes you can't even see us in terms of main media or voicing out these issues. Then there's probably two things that we have to look at it. Whether when we raise this issue, whether we will be seen someone who goes against the government while you are in the government. Second, whether this might as well just sit down and solve the problem instead of you complaining about this, because you are in a position where you can solve the problem. So then these are something that people couldn't see. So then they have these perceptions. Okay, since I can't hear any voice from them, that means they are no more addressing the people's voice. So these are something that we have taken note about this, and now you can see our leaders, even the small matters which is very important, they are raising it.
But again, is that the right move? Because people are calling it an overreaction. It sort of reaffirms the point that it makes the silence before louder by them being so loud now. So is it a wrong thing for DAP to overreact the way it has?
I don't say it's overreact. You see, the tone that we have is to ask the government to look into it. We are not saying, they are wrong or anything. We are saying there's a problem, let's address this, all right? And that is what people want now, that we want even the government to have a check and balance now with your own peers. So, and that has to be seen and has to be heard. Otherwise, you think we will have the same problem again.
But speaking of which, because Liu Chin Tong had to say this about PN in the DAP website, he said, democracy in Malaysia deserves a better opposition. So just as what you said just now, YB, has DAP been a good enough check and balance in the Madani framework?
Indeed, we do.
Why do you say so?
You can see, we have been raising we are participating in every debate in Parliament. We have addressed every single concern that people have. You see, sometimes people these are not covered in mainstream media, so people might not have it. But if you look at in actual facts, all the government backbenchers will be participating in the debate, for instance, for
especially
budgets
Kota Melaka
and all that. So we have been addressing that. So the question is whether we are also check and balance with the government. Of course, we do that. But again, most of it is not captured, and most of it was not publicized properly for people to realize that it has been talked about.
Speaking of things, as you just mentioned, it has been talked about. One thing that's been associated with the DAP tone and delivery is arrogance. What do you say to that label? Do you at least admit that in some cases your leaders were arrogant?
I'm not sure. See, it depends it depends. It depends on how you look at it, how you perceive a tone actually. So again, maybe there might be a stern tone. I would say that someone will say that, why he's so arrogant, or someone will say that he's very firm with his decision. So these are perceptions of people. But again, it's not about the tone or anything. It's about the message that we're willing to deliver. That's what we have to focus on. If something is good and better for the country, then whichever tone it is, I think the message has to be sent out. That's most important.
But as the saying goes, ultimate power ultimately corrupts. And DAP has always been a party that is very people-centric, more socialist in its way. Even your youth wing is called the Democratic Action Party, Youth Socialist Party, Socialist Wing, right? So it does have that people-centric approach. But what people are saying now, and this was said by Michael Yong in KK, he said that even the old ones, even the slightest amenity problems like this, he's talking about problems like potholes and all that, are serious when it comes to calling the government to fix them. They were in the opposition before and more effective, but all of that went down the drain when they became part of the government. So is this a simple case of DAP has forgotten itself? It's drunk with the elixir of power?
Sometimes it's incompetence of the councils as well.
Okay.
Because you see, as a DON and as a Ali Majlis and all, most of them, what they will do is address to the councils. But the councils will make the decision when to get or rectify the potholes and all that. And I realized there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, come to even to close a pothole. You have to call for tender, you have to appoint the contractors. That takes months.
But then again, YB, if you say that, then won't the voters think that if a pothole can't be fixed, what about bigger problems?
Yep.
So how can they trust you?
That's the thing now. See, you must understand, when you are in government, every penny has to be accounted for. So then they have to follow the procedures for them to get it done. But again, This is where you need a policy decision of changing. For instance, I will tell you, in Selangor now, we have introduced a system called SPEED.
Okay.
Within 48 hours, your application for business has to be approved or has to be answered, whether you get it or not. What are the documents lacking? And you have to get it done. Previously, you can see it goes months for you to even rectify this. And this is where the changes come. So when we are in government, we have to bring up policies where we can address this quickly. People are moving very fast. So again, a complaint, for instance, in my Kawasan, in this one, I will say that there's a lot of issues. But yes, but some are rectified, which has come to our knowledge, are rectified quickly. And but it has to be improved better, because we always expect a better quality. But we need to have the fund and also the will to address it as soon as possible.
Okay, but one thing that as you call yourself a spectator, I guess rightfully so, because this was DAP Sabah, right? Were you surprised at the number or the issues that were being championed by DAP quickly right after that? For example, the UEC, SOSMA, and all this. Were you surprised?
No, this has always been a case that we have been doing even before we are part of the government.
But he went silent for a while.
Yes,
Okay.
because then we realized that again the perspective is that we are not voicing out the concerns of the people, and when we are in government, so we are trying to tell the people that we are addressing these issues, and we want the government also to look at it. For instance, SOSMA, as a lawyer, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of pros and cons in it. If you look at the agency's perspective of it, this is the only way for you to have a preventive actions to stop gangsterism, more structured, organized crime. Then the next question will become: is it against human rights? Is against human rights and also a fair trial, all that. So then you have to find a common ground for you to address both. All right. So this is where I think a proper discussion with all the stakeholders has to be taken place for the national security and also for purpose of a fair trial to come in. Because our Article 5 and all that, Article 8 talks about a fair trial, equality, everything, before the law. So we have to find the demarcation actually. But again, I think that was when I think I was engaged when YB Ram Karpal was a deputy minister on engagement of how we can improvise the act in terms of bail, in terms of more fair trial to be given and all that. So these are something that has been addressed at his time. And I've been informed they still have a discussion because it was it was opposed by police and agencies to show if you open up this will be a lot of other issues. And I realize there's the pros and cons, as I always say. Maybe we want to detain him and we want to identify what is cases, for instance, terrorism. If you detain, you let them out, they might spread the information out.
Correct.
Or their comrades might or accomplices might run away. So how you contain and address the entire crime? These are something that has to be discussed.
But again, out of all of that, I think one of the things that it was not officially said, but there were rumors that one of the oppositions to YB Hannah Yeoh becoming the Federal Territory Minister was that she could reinstate local council elections, which would be monumental. I mean, that would shatter the political sphere in Malaysia. Being an inside person, has there been discussions within DAP to bring it back?
I'm not sure about that because you see, any amendment of a local council act has to come from AGC.
Okay.
And from law ministry. As a federal minister, she can't propose anything. That amendment has to go to Parliament, and Parliament has to be approved, debated, and all that.
But have you heard it in the circles you're in? At least even whispers. No. So that's just a rumor.
But there was a discussion to appointment of local council by, like for instance, for KL they don't have councillors to address the problems.
Okay.
So all the MPs has to deal directly with DBKL. So in order for us to have someone as a counsellor to address this by appointment, maybe that something can be proposed.
No, I mean, when I read that, I was like, wow, if this comes, whew, what a change that would be.
Yeah,
Democracy is the right
more
way.
elections.
Definitely, yeah. I get more say in what happens in my taman. Anyway, so let's again, of course, one thing about DAP that always been talked about is the fixed deposit that was your voter bank. Has the Sabah election shaken even DAP's trust in your own voters?
I can't say yes or no, because this is something we have to always observe. We cannot take things for granted, actually.
Yeah.
I think what is most important is for us to do what is the right thing, what is better for the people. I think that's the reason that everyone wants to come to politics, because everyone want to do something to the people and want to bring change into this country. Then again, when you are power or someone who always said you'll be very complacent and all that, but we, as much as I think in terms now, I can't take things for granted. In fact, some also will think, okay, because you lose in Sabah, you might lose here as well. It could happen. So we have to be always vigilant about this and always try to make change.
One of the constant criticisms I hear thrown at DAP from the ground, especially from Chinese businessmen, is that they complain about the e-Invoicing, the SST increase and all that. They say that it just puts layers of costs on their business, makes things harder and all. Is it a situation, but I do understand the need for e-Invoicing, right? Especially you have like your whole shadow economy, you have you want to really lock in the amount of revenue that your country generates. But is this a problem that these steps were not properly explained to the nation as to why it is needed?
I think engagement was done actually in all. Now you can see if you're a business owner, you will be called for a seminar of e-Invoicing. So everyone have been known.
But as to explain why it has to be done.
So in the seminar, they will explain why you need this e-Invoicing, how to go about it and all that. But then I think the Prime Minister now recently announced about this e-Invoicing previously from 500 to 1 million above. So that is a bit of like a breather for SME actually, because a lot of them do not need to invest in terms of the e-Invoicing system, because some are even also complaining that I already invested about it, the e-invoice. But now, you see, everything is a bit difficult at the moment. Like rationalization, I told you, Budi and every hoo-ha was at the time. But after it was implemented, even GST at the time, systems, all that, after implementation, everyone has moved on with life and find it that it's much more efficient. At the early stage, of course, everything will be a bit difficult, or rather, there's a doubt of any policies. When it gives you the results, that's where people will be try to realize, hey, this is actually right, and it's for the betterment of the country. Why a policy has to be done by a government when, if for instance, a political party, when they know that it might lose a support? The question now is it because you want to lose a support, or you want to make the country better, more competitive, build a revenue for the country where you can, in fact, reinvest this money for your domestic, economy, where you can make it more vibrant, we make more money in this country.
But the same can be thrown back at you, because then the question comes is, why is DAP's overreaction to this? Is it because that they are concerned that they are losing the trust of their voters, or is it that their position in DAP, in PH, or in the government as this stronghold vote block is now shaken, and they are more concerned about their position as a party within the framework?
In what sense you are saying?
No, because now
we are now raising this issue.
This is right, because you're trying to show, okay, we are here, because you've lost that sort of security that no, the Chinese will always vote DAP, right? So you are questioning your own position, the strength of your position.
Yeah, the reason is why sometimes when they raise something is also sometimes is reasonable. I give you an example. Every policies will go through a process. The process is stakeholder engagement, drafting the regulation, whether it's within the regulation, what is the impact, what is the disadvantage, all that. But when you have a further discussion, you realize, hey, we have missed out this point. We have to put it on hold for a while. So these are something that we want to look at it as well. So then people have raised this issue to us that, hey, 500 people are still need more time to even implement the invoice and all that. So then we have to raise this issue. Of course, previously we have been raising it in more in what they call more in internal discussion. But then people said, I already told you, but you're not talking to me. You're not raising. I didn't see anywhere. So this is something that we realized that we have to do it. And we are engaging, but we are telling the government to look at it as a positive, we call a positive assertion from us, of positive, what they call, how do you say that? It's a reminder from us. Yeah.
Is it the case, and I want to move forward, but before that, because one label again that's thrown out DAP a lot, and I've also touched this before, is the arrogance label. That's always been there, right? And it's quite surprising to me because I remember PH 1.0, I remember YB Preakas was the most loved parliamentary speaker. People were finding out where he went to school. They said, no, let's send our children there. I remember his 5 brothers, all lawyers. He was a man lah. Anthony Loke was loved, people loved Lim Guan Eng's way of fighting the finance minister, the way he made KJ just, jaw drop and all that. Is it that the PR of these individuals suffered and that is why they lost touch with the ground? Especially in the case of YB Preakas. I mean, he became from most loved to most critics, like, his comments about PTPTN, his involvement in URA and all that. Isn't PR a problem for DAP?
I think it become firmer. Maybe he become firmer in what he say, how he says things. People might think that it's an arrogant way of saying things. And again, his how a person's delivery of his speech and all that. I'm actually.
I'm putting him in a tough spot. I
Tough
know
spot,
why.
actually. Yes. Because I know them. When we talk to them, and then they seems like they're very concerned about the issue, but again they have to put it in a very firmest what they call tone, because it has to be send a message that we are not playing with what we are doing, because it's something that is very, very important, and I think we have to send up the message. But again, it's always now you are saying that majority have things that it looks like an arrogant tone. But not all of them actually. Like you look at Gobind still smiles.
Yeah, Gobind is a different animal. He's loved.
Hannah is still doing a fantastic job. You can see SEA Games this time is the first time we have collected the most gold and medals. These are and Steven Sim, most lovable one.
Yeah, Steven Sim was loved. Yeah, in fact, I was surprised he got moved.
So is to generalize it's DAP. Everyone's like this is unfair. It's individual way of delivering their
No, I think the problem also is that when it comes to PTPTN, for example, in the run-up to PH 1.0, it was promised that they promised that it'll be forgiven, the debt be forgiven, and then when we move to the government, and then you hear YB Preakas saying things that you must pay back and all that, that contrasts just further, magnifies the tone.
No, of course, our opposition will capitalize on these issues and try to say that you say this one time.
Yeah. Okay.
But
sorry, go on, YB.
Yeah. So, but again, I think things has been said at that time, and now when you look at the reality, there's something that you have to make sure put first thing, the country first.
Of course.
If I do something which is going to have a big impact because I want to politically become a champion and let the country go down, I don't think so we should do it.
Okay. Now, one more thing about Sabah and tying it back to the general elections is the low voter turnout in Sabah. And that was what some articles are calling as a silent criticism towards DAP among the Chinese voters. I'm very concerned about this personally. And in fact, a lot of analysts have said that the biggest party in the next elections will be the Parti Tak Undi. Is DAP doing anything to ensure that more people come out to vote?
We have to look into that because we believe that there's a lot of effort or a lot of things has to be done, not only as far as the policy is concerned, also to make people realize how important is election and how that have impact in their life. We can see, as what you can predict, there will be a lot of campaigning on racial sentiments. Why the country have to look at this affairs of particular races instead of all. These are something that very concerned. I think people have to realize if they give up on this, it might have an impact another 5 years towards their children and their grandchildren and their entire life as well. And I think we have to advocate people to come out and vote and think carefully. Think carefully. I won't say you should vote for us. You think carefully of what is the future of this country.
Okay. Now, one thing that was said after the meeting, the Sabah election, was a 6 months timeline to implement the reforms or to push Anwar to do so. Is that a realistic timeline, you think? 6 months?
We think if something that we can be done, some are actually, it's already in a pipeline. So we want that to be expedited and to get things done.
Okay.
So a lot of discussion has been taken place. We hope the reform can be seen soon in the 6 months.
Now, I'll bring it to a close with this, YB. Former DAP MP Charles Santiago has urged DAP to return to its original strengths, people-centered policies, cost of living concerns, good governance, accountability and transparency. He warned that the party has drifted towards political maneuvering at the expense of public service. Do you agree with this statement?
No.
Why
He's
so?
my good friend. No. I think. Probably it can be seen like that way because you're in government. All right. Again, when anything to be done, it has gone through a proper engagement. It targeted, whether it hits the target is a question that we have to look at it at the data driven. But again, reminder, I think how Charles has done is give us a reminder, look at the cost benefit of the people. Whatever you do, you must run a cost benefit. What is the impact of their policies and how it has addressed the issue? If you speak to YB Amir, the second Prime Minister, he will show on the data everything. Malaysia is in right path in terms of economic, in terms of you can see today also our ringgit is getting stronger than against USD, and also last year Selangor has recorded the highest trading revenue, more than a few trillions, and also GDP we have shown that we have raised, and our FDI has come more, and job opportunity has been created. So we are in the right path as far as that concerned. Even I think the last podcast with KJ, the minister was talking about how KWSP shows that there's increase of salaries of our individual. Where salaries increase, then the input to, or rather the contribution to KWSP will show there's increase. That shows there's an increase, significant increase. So there's a pay raise and all that has been done because of the progressive wage model.
Yeah.
So it takes some time for us to get the fruit of our initiatives and actions. But again, we are. I mean, as far as PH is concerned, it's 3 years, and people have a very high expectation that when you come tomorrow, everything has to be settled.
Yesterday. Yeah.
It has to be settled yesterday.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's normal,
Yeah.
but we have to manage that properly.
Now, last but not least, I mean, of course, you have to admit that there were some mistakes done by DAP as well, right?
Yeah.
So if it were up to you, as you are the upcoming generation of senior leaders in the party, what would you recommend be the first thing that DAP addresses moving forward?
Again, the voice of people, that's the most important for us. We have been the representative of people. We have to bring the voice of people. and address the key issues of people's need. And also, when you are government, you look at it as a country as a whole. We have to look at in terms of make sure that the cost of living is balance it out with the salary they're earning, and also we have to make sure that the concerns of some reform will be delivered.
All right. Thank you so much, YB, for coming on.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
As I always said, you always have a seat here, so please come back.
Thank you. Definitely.
So guys, that was YB Preakas, ADUN of Kota Kemuning, sharing his thoughts on DAP. Please share what you thought about his answers and what you thought about some of the issues perhaps you want DAP to know, and what are some of the thoughts you have about their future, and as well as we run up to GE16. So we'll see you all soon, guys. We have a lot of content coming up, particularly in this run up to G16. Starting next year, we'll be having a new segment called Road to G16. We're talking about various issues, and we want to hear your voices as well. We'll be having a phone line. You guys can call in. We can have a nice conversation, a nice debate, and hear the thoughts of the people. So we'll see you all soon, guys. Take care. Bye.